and welcome back to 155 Books. My name is Shannon and today we're going to do a bit of a casual video. I'm in the mood to sit down with you and talk you through basically my journey with Shakespeare and how I got into Shakespeare and why I love Shakespeare so much. And then we're going to end with a very exciting announcement which I have been keeping under my hat for far too long and I'm very excited to finally share that with you. But first, we're going to talk about my relationship with the William Shakespeare. So it's one of those things that kind of, I guess, starts like many things do with classical literature. I come from two parents who very much are bookish people who enjoy reading and who enjoy Shakespeare. So you kind of grow up with it, I guess. It's discussed in your household, it's a conversation that is brought up. My granddad, who unfortunately I never got to meet, he was into amateur dramatics, so obviously for my mum it was a very big thing. I remember her telling me from a very young age that she played the part of the Wall in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and that was before I'd come across A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was very confused but definitely intrigued, and I think that helps. So I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like, how can you play a wall? It makes no sense. And like I said, my dad is very much a sort of bookish literary person anyway, who can definitely appreciate Shakespeare and does appreciate Shakespeare. So like I say, just being in that environment definitely helps. And then of course, the first introduction is always school. So when I talk to people about this, they're quite surprised, but we did Macbeth, or obviously a very toned down version of Macbeth in year 6. So I would have been 9, 10, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to go into a bit more detail about that because firstly, no surprise to probably a lot of you, I was a massive nerd in school, a massive nerd. I loved being teacher's pet, I loved being top of the class. It was just something I kind of relished in, and I would say I kind of peaked in primary school. I was definitely the smartest in primary school, and then I kind of like went downhill from there. Not downhill, it's just obviously you're then in amongst a lot of other people who are much smarter and see the world in a different way, which is also very interesting, and that was never an issue for me. Thankfully, it could have obviously gone to my head a little bit and I could have got in my head about that, but I never did. But I definitely enjoyed it in primary school, and it's one thing I do remember was that in primary school, we, for example, were in assemblies and I was a certain age and they were giving out prizes to the people leaving for doing really well, and I don't want to say it was something I aspired to, but it's definitely something I noticed. Like, I took note of what was happening and I was like, wow, imagine how great it would be to be one of those people that like does really well and gets an award. So I guess I kind of did aspire, but that was not really a word in my dictionary or like something that I was able to comprehend, but it was definitely something, like I say, that I noticed. And one of the things I noticed around that time was there were, obviously it's the same in schools here still, I believe, where there's like boards all around the school, like in the hallways and stuff, that normally get filled with the work of different year groups. And there was one with these really long essays to do with Macbeth, and I remember passing it and looking at it and being like, oh, I can't wait until I'm at this stage where I can do something like that. Or it was more sort of I can never picture myself doing something like that. So then obviously when it came round to year 6 and we were then doing Macbeth and we were writing those essays and they got put up on the wall, it felt like a massive achievement to me. I was like, wow. I remember when I used to pass this looking at other people's work and I thought, you know, I wanted to do this and now look at me, I'm doing that. So that was very interesting. And side note, when I left primary school, I was the top of my year and I got one of those really shiny, exciting prizes. And my prize was a very thick book to do with history, which was really cool because I was getting into archaeology then. So yeah, that was Shakespeare in school, take 1. So now we get into high school, and high school we did 3 separate Shakespeare plays throughout my time in high school. So we did, well, I'll get into this shortly. I did Romeo and Juliet, then as a school in year 9, or was it in a class in year 9, we did Julius Caesar, which I really enjoyed reading, and then again in year 10 or 11 with the English literature coursework we did Macbeth again, which obviously I loved. But the reason why I say I did Romeo and Juliet, I was very, very lucky to be part of the Shakespeare School Festival again in year 9. So I loved year 9. Year 9 was one of the best years. It was filled with a lot of Shakespeare. So I was asked to audition. We were sort of selected by a member of the drama team, and we were all kind of asked to stay back, and we got invited or asked to obviously audition for the Shakespeare School Festival, and we were going to be doing Romeo and Juliet. And I was so excited because I had auditioned for so many school musicals, because in the UK it really frustrates me that there seems to only be school musicals that they put on, and if you can't sing you never get a part because there's never any non-singing parts. And it really upset me because I loved drama, I loved acting, and I just wanted to do something that didn't involve singing. So when this came along I was so happy. I was like, yes, I really want to do this. It ended up just being girls that did it, the boys weren't that interested, so we put on an all-girls version of Romeo and Juliet, and I was Lady Capulet, which, looking back, that's actually a very big part, and I loved it. It was amazing. We got to go to the local town and perform it alongside 3 other schools, and my parents came, and it was just such a good experience. It was one of the best experiences I had in high school. Getting to do that with some of your best friends, yeah, it was just so good. And another thing I guess that was really great about that was an introduction to some of the other Shakespeare plays. So another school did Macbeth, that was like a circus version of Macbeth, which was very interesting. There was people on roller skates and juggling, and it was a whole shebang. Another school, I think, did Much Ado About Nothing, I want to say. And Othello was the other one, the third one, which was really great. So, like I say, it was an introduction to some of Shakespeare's other plays that I hadn't come across before, which equally is always so enjoyable. And then, like I say, after that we did Julius Caesar in class, where we just read the play and just did a little bit of information sort of about that, and that was really enjoyable. And then in year 10 or 11 we did Macbeth again, and I did really well on my coursework because obviously I really enjoyed Macbeth. I loved doing the English coursework for English literature. Out of all of them, we did one on Frankenstein, one on An Inspector Calls, and one on Macbeth. And I think out of what I got graded in Inspector Calls, I got full marks, which I'm still so proud of, but I loved that play. Then I think I got the same mark on the Frankenstein one and Macbeth, which makes sense because again they're both a book and a play I just really enjoy and love. Yeah, I always forget as well that I did English literature for a year at sixth form, so my A-levels, and we did King Lear. However, I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with that. I didn't enjoy it as much, but that, I think it was maybe my teacher, and that's why I ended up dropping it and I didn't take it to like full A-level. But I still enjoy King Lear as a book, and I'm still glad that, you know, I got to become familiar again with another Shakespeare play in my education. However, after that, through university, I somehow survived without any kind of snippets or anything from Shakespeare. I don't really know how I did that, probably because obviously it was archaeology that took over my life, which I equally love and enjoy, and I was still reading other books. And then that takes me to my mum booking us tickets to go and see A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Open Air Theatre. So that would have been my very first time going to see a Shakespeare play performed that wasn't to do with school. And for whatever reason, my mum was unwell and she couldn't go with me, but I was still so excited that I went by myself. And it was amazing. It was the best thing ever, and obviously I wasn't aware of the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream. It had been so long since I had like I say, read any Shakespeare, had any kind of thing of Shakespeare in my life, and I was really concerned that I wasn't going to understand a single thing about what was going on. And I think out of all of the ones I've been to see, that is the one that I've been able to understand the most while I've watched it. And it totally changed my life. It was raining, it was hilarious, the person that was playing the wall slipped and like did the splits and nearly fell over, and it was wonderful. It was really, really great. And that is what I think got me into reading Shakespeare, because after that I just fell in love with A Midsummer Night's Dream and I wanted to read the play, and I bought it and I read it and I loved how lyrical it was reading it. And like I say, that just opened a whole can of worms of me wanting to read all these Shakespeare plays. In between that, I can never work out or remember what came first, whether I decided to read A Midsummer Night's Dream before I read this book, or if I decided to read it after I read this book. But either way, this book massively changed my life and the way I view Shakespeare. It just blew open my Shakespeare heart, and I will always be so, so grateful for this book, especially because it's one of my favourite books of all time. I don't know where I would be without this book, and I'm so, so glad I read it. And that is, of course, If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, and I had to mention this in this video. It's one of those ones where in my life I can see like a crossroads because I was not aware of this book. This book was not on my radar, and myself and Shah had started a book club where we were just reading books, and this was Shah's pick. And to be honest with you, I was so uninterested in reading it that I bought a second-hand copy. And I never do that. I never buy books second-hand, but that just shows that I was a bit like, I don't know what this is about, I don't think I'm that interested in it. And then I started reading it, and I finished it and Shah never did, and it just changed my life. Yes, I'm trying to think, so I read this in October. I want to find out, 1 second. Yes, that makes more sense. I've just checked my Goodreads, and I read this in the October before the year that I set myself the Shakespeare Reading Challenge, where I attempted to read one Shakespeare play every month, and I did really well because I read 10 out of the 12 I wanted to read. So this was definitely what kickstarted it, because obviously in this there are several Shakespeare plays that the cast of characters perform while they're at university, and it just seeing them performing the plays, I knew I needed more Shakespeare in my life. And for me, doing that was reading the plays, and I've really enjoyed doing that. That's why I'm still trying to complete them all. I would love to say that I've read all of his plays. Since then, I have also obviously been to Stratford-upon-Avon twice, and I love Stratford-upon-Avon. It has a feel to it. It just feels like, I can't say it feels Shakespearean, but it brings joy to my life. So I've seen Hamlet performed there. Me and my mum went to see As You Like It the last time, which was amazing. Obviously this book then made me realise I like books that use Shakespeare in them. So obviously Hamlet is another one of those, that top tier book, 5 stars. Probably one of my favourite books of all time, but I want to reread it to like say that I feel that way. The film is going to destroy me. That's a whole other thing. And I've also seen Hamlet performed since then as well, in Windsor, and I've seen Romeo and Juliet, and I'm going to see Hamlet again soon in October. So I think this book, if, for example, I had never read it or Shah hadn't suggested that we read it, my life would be very different, and I cannot picture what my life would be like without this, without having read this, and that's just wild. And I think that's why it's always going to have a special place in my heart. So yes, so that's basically my relationship with with Shakespeare and how it has evolved over time. And what I find very interesting about that, and it's something I would love to talk to other people about who I also know love Shakespeare, is how they got into Shakespeare, because for a lot of other people it's obviously the adaptations and performances that they have seen with certain people playing these amazing characters, and that's not something that really features in my relationship with Shakespeare. So that's why I haven't actually watched a lot of these adaptations or performances that people recommend me. Like, I had only watched the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet film like a couple of years ago and I felt really embarrassed admitting that. But that's fine, it's just because my journey with Shakespeare was different to maybe other people's. Yeah, and it just, like I say, it always brings such a smile to my face when I talk about it. And now we are going to talk about where that journey with Shakespeare has taken me to this day, because I've got a very, very exciting announcement to share with you all. Like I say, I've been keeping this under my hat for quite a while, but for this past year I've been working like my heart and soul off on a little side project that I am very passionate and happy about, and I cannot believe how well it's turned out. But I will be opening on Friday the 26th of September my Etsy shop. This is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, but I've never really known where to start, and this past year it has changed. Like, I've had so many different ideas of what I wanted it to be and how it was going to turn out, and it's, like I say, taken me on this whole journey, and I'm so happy with the outcome. So I'm going to be sharing a little video here of some of my products. So it is a literary inspired gift shop, basically, called Shannon's 155 Books. It's launching on the 26th of September, and from it you can buy candles, wax melts and bookmarks, and I've got 3 starting collections which are all, of course, inspired by Shakespeare plays. So the first 3 collections are the Hamlet collection / the Lady Doth Protest collection. They are all inspired by quotes from the different plays, and like I say, I'm just so happy with how they've turned out. So the wax melts and the candles are have an ivory and amber scent. This is probably my favourite one, the Hamlet one, out of all the smells, but they all smell amazing. The wax melts have got some yellow rose petals included in them as well. And then we have got the Romeo and Juliet collection, which is these Violet Delights. I've got to say, this one was the one that inspired all of it. After going to see Romeo and Juliet for my birthday at the Globe, I just was massively inspired after that, and that's I like what kick-started these collections. And I kind of feel like the Romeo and Juliet one came first, and I just ran forward with that one, and the others kind of came along after, which is very exciting. This one is a sort of like fruity rose scent. This one is my mum's favourite out of all of them, and again the wax melts have got some red rose petal inclusions in them. And the third and final collection is obviously the Midsummer Night's Dream collection, which is the Merry Wanderer of, or no, that Merry Wanderer of the Night collection. And the wax melts have got, again, some yellow rose petals and some rosemary sprigs in them. And the scent is peony, sort of peony and blush. Again, it's a kind of a deeper fruity scent. Again, I really tried to match the scents with how I pictured and felt about the different Shakespeare plays. I don't expect that to be how other people feel, and that's also completely fine. But I'm just, like I say, I'm so proud and happy with how everything's turned out, and I cannot wait to share this with you on the 26th of September. Obviously, all of the information about this is going to be in the description box, including my Instagram page, where you can find the link to my shop when it launches on Friday. And then also you can expect in November the launch of another very exciting collection. It's a smaller collection that includes some stationery, but that's all I'm going to say for now, because I'm very excited about sharing that later on. And again, closer to Christmas, so in November, I plan to launch some gift boxes as well, because I thought that would be a fun idea. But that is all I've got to share with you today. I was very excited to sit down and film this video and share all of this with you, and I hope to see you soon in my next videos. Bye!